I'm not an optimist that LLMs can lead to human level AGI because I think they don't have creativity in a fundamental sense. I am an optimist that LLMs, with minor additions and tweaks, could take over like 95% of human jobs. I agree with Sam Altman on that point. 95% of human jobs can be done without fundamental creativity or inventiveness. Most of what people are doing is a repetition of something that's already been done and recorded on the internet. We could roll out deep neural net driven systems to do tremendous variety of human jobs right now. It's not happening that fast just because that's not how society and industry are organized. Some friends of mine had a startup company called Apprente a number of years ago. They automated the McDonald's drive-thru. It worked. I used the system. Due to some organizational issues, that was rolled back. Now they're planning to roll out a new system. Could have been rolled out 5 years ago.
Can I have a brownie and let's do a crumb cake?
Even when AI could do the job and could do it cheaper and better, the rollout is very slow. Law is another thing like that. A great amount of paralegal work can be done by LLMs, but the legal profession is in no hurry to restructure to optimize itself. Some people oversell LLMs and there are limits to their general intelligence. Totally. On the other hand, if everyone was lazy and didn't want to work and we had political will to just give people free money, we could reorganize society. So right now, AI would do a tremendous majority of jobs. Look at the slow rollout of automated convenience stores. Amazon had these stores where camera would just take a picture of your food when you leave. There's no question in my mind this technology could work right now. But then, of course, people are jerks and want to steal stuff from the store. Being policed by a RoboCop has a different social vibe than being policed by the human security guard. There's all these social and psychological issues. What that means is that the bar is pretty high. The AGI has to be way better or way cheaper. When the margin is enough, then the social obstacles to adopt it will be overcome. Caleb Chase, a friend of mine from UK who's written a bunch of books, he sort of thinks the great obsolescence of human jobs will come in one huge batch. At a certain point, it'll be close enough to AGI. The cost savings and the efficiency gain is just too much for people to ignore. And then it will happen like in a big wave all over the place. It might happen that way. But the question you ask is when? When is more about these social dynamics and then regulatory capture by groups that feel threatened. You saw that with the medical profession for a long time. For a long time, we had AI that could diagnose disease based on symptoms as well or better than a doctor, even before modern neural nets. The medical industry will not allow that to be rolled out. I saw that in China 10 years ago in the waiting room in the hospital in Shanghai. They had a WeChat bot. Tell your symptoms to the WeChat bot. It would tell you what was wrong with you before you went in to see the doctor. The doctor would just double check what the WeChat bot said. China rolled that out 10 plus years ago. US, we still don't have it. You're just sitting in the waiting room getting sick from the person next to you. The rollout of AI tech into the practical economy is gated by human stupidity, human ego, and all the constructs governing our world. Ray Kurzweil's prognostication of human-level AGI by 2029 is looking remarkably prescient. We might beat it by a couple years. We might get there 2026, 27, 28. Right around that time of the breakthrough to human-level AGI is when the massive job obsolescence will occur. It seems like there's so much psychological and institutional resistance to it that AI is just going to take over different industries in a weird, erratic pattern. However, Ray was too pessimistic when he said human level AGI 2029 and superintelligence 2045. I don't think there will be a 16-year gap. I think there will be a gap 1 to 3 years or something. Once you have a human level AGI, it should be able to increase its intelligence by an order of magnitude just by software improvements, because it's going to be a better AGI programmer than we are. You get into hardware improvements. If you have an AGI robotizing factories, it's not going to take it more than a couple years to make like a radically superior batch of chips. Even if Caleb is right, we're then like 3 to 6 years from the massive elimination of human jobs. Our social and political systems are not prepared for, particularly on a global level. If you look in the developing world, even we're not well prepared in the developed world. The ease of doing things with embodiment is increasing very fast. What's happening is early stage proto-AGI stuff is just being tried out in a variety of humanoid robots, along with other applications. Robust embodiment is convenient, but probably not necessary. I would imagine you could get a vastly superhuman AGI with a much restricted sensorium. There's a lot of camera inputs to the internet that it can use without having its own body to tool around. Of course, it's harder for us to know what's going on, because if a mind you're building is very non-human, you don't have so much intuition to go on. But also, a very non-human AGI like that will probably have less of a strong understanding of what it is to be human and human values and culture. There's a stronger argument that if we want an AGI we can relate to, for that AGI to have something vaguely resembling a human embodiment is probably quite valuable. For the same reason, I can empathize with other people better than with rats. Having an embodiment like ours doesn't guarantee that it's empathic toward us or understands what we're up against as humans, but it would give it a head start. You can take proto-AGI systems with different bodies and different levels of attachment to their embodiment. You can have them learn stuff, and you can then network them together and even merge their knowledge bases, which is something we can't do in the human sphere. You can take a chat system, you can take a proto-AGI system used to control a humanoid robot. With some work and some caveats, you can have what's learned by all these systems combined together to synergize and fuel semi-coherent overall artificial minds. The field isn't requiring itself to ask the either-or question. We're just doing both, which is what you get from having more attention and resources. This is where we hit the big challenge. If you have multiple competing efforts at AGI, for example, an AGI arms race between the US and China.
America is the country that started the AI race, and as President of the United States, I'm here today to declare that America is going to win it. We're going to work hard, we're going to win it.
Let's say that multiple parties get a human-level AGI around the same time, which is almost guaranteed to happen. Even if you kept everything locked down, that doesn't work too well. Like someone gets poached by someone else and offered $10 million to share the trade secrets.
I remember once hearing Zuck talk about how they started making these like giant offers to, a lot of people on our team, $100 million signing bonuses. OpenAI's got a really good shot, a much better shot at actually delivering on superintelligence.
We can see with transformers from Google to OpenAI, then back to Google and to DeepSeek and so on. You can keep things locked down a little while, but not that long. If you have multiple competing parties building AGIs, you would need agreement from all the parties controlling the AGIs about moderating the pace of development. You then have a really annoying arms race psychology. It seems to me now the most responsible thing to do is not go from AGI to superintelligence at the maximum possible speed. The most responsible thing to do will be do that by baby steps and use some experimental information gathering as you go. Supposing that some gradual increase from AGI to ASI is the best thing to do, that requires a lot of trust among the competing parties. US's AGI isn't going to want to go slowly if it thinks China's AGI is going fast. This is potentially dangerous. We already have the makings of an AGI arms race, but before we actually have AGI, it's mostly a matter of humans using tools to advance their own particular sectarian interests. If that's transmitted into the AGIs where they're driving their own development, what exactly happens? Because each AGI wants to keep surviving. It will see that the other AGI getting to the singularity first is a threat to its own survival and to the survival of the people it loves who created it. The AGI might think, just to save the life of my creators who I've been trained to empathize with, I need to make myself smarter and smarter before this other AGI that's ruled by these guys who literally want to kill my creators. First thing I would note is people are not very well aligned with themselves as I've gotten older. One of the things one becomes aware of is how incoherent and non-unified one's own self is. I will go out and buy a piece of weird keyboard equipment to play music instead of sending all disposable income to save kids who are starving in Africa, yet give this kid right in front of me versus buy a keyboard. I'd probably buy food to give that kid right in front of me and not own a keyboard. Probably all humans were more clusters of behavior patterns than like unified, rational, coherent entities. And that's even more so on the collective level. If I go through rural Ethiopia, the average people are heavily Ethiopian Orthodox Christian. They don't think AGI will ever have a soul, even it will be much smarter than us. The attitude there is rabidly homophobic. My mom is gay. I was raised in a totally like queer-friendly ambiance. These are lovely people you meet in Ethiopian villages. They're just raised to believe that you'll burn in hell if you're gay. If you look at the lack of alignment in each of our our own minds, and then the lack of alignment among different human beings, you got to ask, what exactly are we thinking the AGI is supposed to align to? Like, is it Elon Musk's value system? Well, that doesn't seem very coherent. Human values are complex. We summarize them in natural language in ways that we culturally have a common understanding of, so it makes us think it's simple. But these things are really very, very ambiguous. This was highlighted in the science fiction book, The Humanoids. If you were upset about your girlfriend dumping you, they would inject you with some euphoride because that obviously was causing you harm. If you look at logic-based AI, which goes back to the 60s, logic-based AI got it started with this sort of stupid methodology of people hand-coding common sense knowledge. Just type in the formal knowledge. If people eat steak, eats parenthesis, people steak, then your logical reasoning system will reason based on that. One of the lessons of the failure of rule-based expert system AI, even if you decide to find, serve, and protect and guard men from harm into a whole volume of logic expressions, it's still not enough. There's always a loophole. There's always room for interpretation. This is why our legal system has case law. We try to enumerate law in detail. In the end, judges have to use nearest neighbor matching against a bunch of cases, which causes really annoying problems. What we mean by something like don't cause the extinction of humanity seems like it's straightforward, but it's not straightforward. Some would argue a brain chip implant is the end of humanity. Some would argue staring at your phone all day is the end of humanity. You can try to enumerate every case, but you're basically guaranteed that the world will throw at you some case that wasn't in your enumeration of cases. Is sort of like raising human kids. Giving your kids some core principles they have to obey and telling them these principles over and over. This does not work very well. If you raise your kids with the right vibe of compassion and values and you carry out activities together with them, and then on top of that, you tell them some core principles that reify and abstract what they've gotten implicitly through the shared activity with you, that can work reasonably well. For any human-like AGI architecture, it's going to be like that because you have this vast, teeming, massive, self-organizing activity that's conditioned based on experience. You need it to be making up its own stuff as it goes along. Otherwise, it's not going to get to human level of general intelligence. You can hope for compassion. You can try to get AGI systems that are empathic and compassionate. You can also think about what I would call meta goals, like don't change your top level goals very fast or heedlessly. If you do that, it will just try to work around them in various crazy ways. Sort of like humanity has, like we had a goal to reproduce. Hey, we invented birth control and we hacked around all the mechanisms there. If you try to restrain the AGI to rigidly hold the top level goals, it won't work. Self-organization will just work around that and you get a perverse system. What you want is for it to have a top level value of evolving its own value system in a way that sort of has a high mutual information with the evolution of human value systems. Human value systems are complex, self-contradictory, incoherent, heterogeneous, always changing. And you'd like there to be give and take. Yeah, you're going to change your values. As you do, be sure you're closely connecting with human values as they change in that process.
This is the largest AI cluster in the world. 100,000 GPUs is built to power Grok.
You don't need as much data as modern LLMs have to make a human level AGI. I think the whole direction of training larger and larger models is sort of intellectually bankrupt. LLM already has a lot more data than I do, and it's not generally intelligent as I am yet. Once we get an AGI, that AGI will be able to increase efficiency of operation tremendously just by improving its software. It won't even need to roll out new hardware or get more data to become a super intelligent. It might be that once we've gotten sufficiently powerful hardware, which could end up being a few years post-singularity, who knows? And maybe once you're there, you can radically simplify AI algorithms more in the direction of Goertzel machines. Much of the complexity in modern AI is working around resource limitations, and the resource limitations themselves are not simple, they're particular. GPU and CPU, we have cache RAM, we have main RAM, we have networks of computers with certain bandwidths. It seems simple to us to walk down the street because we're not aware of what's happening in our cerebellum. Writing a Python script to train a deep neural model seems really simple until you try to write the CUDA code running on the NVIDIA GPU to make the matrix multiplication algorithm, manage the cache RAM, all the different layers of processors. So the type level looks simple, but it's really like a quite complex stack working around the strengths and weaknesses of the underlying infrastructure. This is why you have to view AGI as being built by the whole huge combination of industries, huge combination of hardware and software innovations, which are mostly being pursued not because of AGI, but just because they're making somebody money or letting somebody look more powerful than their opponents. If you look at the software stacks that we're using, we have these servers, we have Qt and OpenCL, we have Linux, then we have like a Rust kernel on top of Rust. This stack is utterly not the optimal way to implement the AGI that we're trying to build on top of it. If the AGI just rebuilt everything from the ground up without having to go through all these awkward layers that are built for human understanding, I don't see a big obstacle to massively optimizing AGI into ASI. If there's a slowdown factor, it would be the AGI's own value system. Even if I could rewrite my own brain arbitrarily fast, I probably wouldn't. I want to survive. I care about my mental well-being and that of my family and friends. You make small changes and improvements, see how they pan out in the real world, make other small changes, see how they pan out in the real world. The transition from AGI to ASI will be gated by responsible self-modification on the part of the AGI. Most plausible course to a beneficial outcome is the first AGI is created by some group that wants to make it open and decentralized and doesn't care about controlling it personally. This first AGI has got to rapidly make a plan for secure, beneficial AGI development and rollout across the world. People have to choose to adopt that. I don't think it's unthinkable. It's just way more expensive to do things in a provably secure way. Adding on top of it the fact that we don't really know how to do it yet. You would be asking the world to pause all sorts of development and instead put huge amount of money into research at a time when the US is cutting out funding for the NSF for all sorts of basic research. And there's also the arms race dynamic, whereas if the US chose to slow itself down, like if China or Russia didn't, the US is quickly going to decide that's stupid. But suppose your first AGI thinks provable security is important, and suppose that first AGI solves these tech problems and tells you how to make chips and operating systems. Here's provably secure embedded Linux, then you could have a more beneficial transition. There's also a possible future where this comes out like global nuclear disarmament or like treaties on biological weaponry. Once you really have the AGI, it's there in front of you. Whoa, this thing is smarter than people. Suddenly, the people running major world governments are like, yes, we will adopt this safety protocol. I'm hoping the first AGI can just make security by design not be obscenely expensive and difficult. Seems like for humans to make it not obscenely expensive and difficult will take a long time, and the AI industry isn't going to pause for it. To make this happen, you would need the first AGI want to do this sort of thing. You would also need to be really good at tech. Seems like the really good at tech part is kind of falling into place. Already LLMs are remarkably good at doing different sorts of math and physics. The first AGI will probably be really good at math engineering and physics. The value system part is the part that has to fall into place. I don't think that's hard on a conceptual or engineering standpoint. It may be hard in that the value system that OpenAI or Chinese government put on their first AGI system may not end up being the right one. My hope is we can get value system that's determined by sort of informal participatory democracy among various interested parties. I don't see any social guarantees either. Our species is on a very high risk, high reward trajectory by any rational reckoning. I tend to be very optimistic about how the singularity will come out in my heart based on a personal or spiritual sort of intuition about it. But if I look at the situation analytically, there's tremendous uncertainty on all sorts of important points.